Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Hia Sauma Somatics. My name is Hia Sauma. I'm a somatic movement educator and an author and a speaker. And today's episode is very special because it is one of the topics that I love the most in the world, which is intimacy and movement. And today we're going to learn about a practice that not a lot of know about, which is authentic movement. And we have a very special guest joining us, Rena Milgrom, who is a somatic movement educator also, and a somatic movement artist with a really wide spectrum of movement practices and artistic practices. Rena, welcome to this podcast. And tell us something about yourself and how these movement practices have found you. Tell us about your journey in somatics.
Hello here. Um, yeah, it's been a long journey. I would say more than 30 years, much more. Um, I come from dance, and then from dance, uh, I got interested in dance movement therapy, and from dance movement therapy to somatic practices, to the somatic world, because it's very connected. But yet there is um, there is such a great variety of approaches and experiences. So yeah, I wanted to explore mostly how the body and psyche mm, can get more experiences, more possibilities, more wider worldview, wider, yeah, yeah.
That's beautiful. And where are you based also? Because you're bringing to us a cultural perspective that is new on my channel too.
I am from Prague, based in Prague. So, yeah, I've been here most of my life,
Mhm.
except for some years living in the US. But I'm here and I have my practice there, my dance studio for a long time.
Yes. So somatics in Europe also. Rena, tell us about authentic movement. You mentioned earlier before we started recording that you feel like authentic movement is a practice people don't really know so much about. So, what does it look like when I come to a somatic, authentic movement session? What happens there? Who is it for? How does it unfold?
Hmm.
Maybe you want to tell us about the history of it also?
Yeah, I think it's worth it to begin with the history because the method started developing in the 50s, 60s by an American dancer, Mary Starks Whitehouse, who was actually a student of Mary Wigman. So she was a dancer, but later on she studied the Jungian psychoanalysis, and then she found she found this method because she really wanted to see how people express authentically, how dancers can express authentically. So this was kind of the beginning. And she had she had two prominent students who actually carried that work further. One of them is Joan Chodorov,
Mhm.
and the other one is Janet Adler. And these both women took the wisdom of this practice further into quite different perspectives and quite different ways of practicing. There is um, um, yeah, it is called sometimes the movement in depth or active imagination, but that's sort of the Jungian aspect of that, which is carried by John Chodorov.
Mm-hmm.
But then Janet Adler, who died about 2 years ago, she took it into very different kind of a mystical practice. So it is a movement practice, and it can be connected to all kind of other practices. It can be taken in even into clinical practice of dance movement therapy, or it can be taken into artistic practice, choreographic explorations, or it can be taken into meditative spiritual practice. Yeah, so it depends what one wants to do with it, or how people can be inclined, who want to go deeper into it. So for whom it is, I always wanted to say, oh, it's for anybody who is curious, anybody who wants to further develop self-knowledge or find out something about themselves. Mostly I would say it's about that, to further develop self-knowledge and to come closer to the truth. So it is a practice for everybody, but not for everybody, but because you need to kind of agree to be in silence. There is no music.
Yes. Yes. Tell us about what it looks like. What is like I
Yeah.
come to the session, like what happens? I step into the studio.
You step into the studio, and what I like, what is for me very necessary, to set up this frame of a ritual. Sometimes it is called a contemporary ritual because usually it's about sort of a contemplation. So people come from the normal life, from the street, and they need some time to settle down. And so we already come into quiet
Mm-hmm.
space. We have tea. We sit together in a circle. We do maybe a little body sensing and kind of landing into the space. And we have a candle in the middle. And if somebody needs to say something, share something, there is time for the opening before we get into the practice. And then it depends how big is the circle. I usually usually it's a small group of 4, 6, 8 people. And sometimes we work in duets, sometimes in trios, and sometimes as a whole group. And what does it mean? There is a mover and there is a witness. So this practice is based on moving and witnessing. And the mover always have closed eyes. And the witness is learning how to be witness. And that's a whole process. And then we share. Either they share with each other, or we share together in a circle. So,
I see.
yeah. And minimum, it takes minimum 2 hours. I like 2.5 hours, or the best thing is to have retreats for many hours and practice that. So it's a sort of a kind of a retreat situation. And the ritual is very much framed by the by the structure of people being together, looking at each other, sensing each other. Then there is a Tibetan bell, gong. There is a exact time given for the movement practice. Then there is ending. Then there is a gesture to finish. And then there is a time to talk. So it is all very precisely structured.
Yes, which is important also. Rena, tell me, like, imagine I come to your session and I tell you, well, how do I start moving? Like, how, like, what am I supposed to do?
Yes,
What
yes,
does the
yes.
movement look like? Like, how does one start to move in an authentic movement session?
Yeah, yeah. Many people ask that, and many people have a difficult time to get into it.
Mhm.
So there is the preparation. People usually find out something before about it, or I tell them. And then there is time to begin. And basically, the invitation is that the mover is learning how to wait with his closed eyes for an impulse to be moved. So the movement is generated by some kind of a impulse, and the impulse can be from inside, maybe a physical impulse, or it can be from outside. It can be a noise or smell or something which makes you curious, and you can go for it. But usually the impulse comes from inside, from either thoughts or imaginations or sensations, and and each person is following different impulses. Yeah, some people are very mental, and thoughts are just cannot ever stop. Some people begin to imagine, go into fantasies quite quite easily, so they follow that image. Yeah. And some people have access to their emotional um, um, impulses, so they follow that. And in authentic movement, each movement, whether it can be just a small tiny movement, everything is valid, everything is really important. So we're trying to learn that to be seen is something really nurturing, really something so valuable, which fundamentally we all need to be seen, except we all are afraid to be seen because we were always criticized by somebody, whether adults, parents, teachers, society, whatever. So we are afraid to be seen. But in fact, we all need to be seen, because if we are not seen, we really don't exist. And we want to see one another just the way we are. We want to see the person as they are, not their masks or their pretension or persona, or we want to see, I want to see who you are, who you really are, right? I mean, that's kind of natural. We all want that.
Mhm. I remember many years ago, I did a teacher training in Journey Dance, created by Tony Bergens. And one of the things she said during the training, I will never forget, she said, one of the biggest pains that people have, the biggest aches, is this fear of not being seen ever in their lives. That is
Oh,
what you said
yes.
also. We have this hunger and this need to be seen deeply, and if we don't, it haunts us also.
And seen as we are, because if we always have a feeling that we must do this or that, that we must achieve something, we must look like something, then um, it can be just a good cause for trauma, right? And it is, I mean, in many ways. So yeah, the society is not, unfortunately, very healthy.
Yes. As I was listening to you, and I know that one of the questions I will ask you is about intimacy and movement, I realized this kind of I let you I let you see me authentically is also a type of intimacy too. Like
Oh,
me giving somebody else the permission to see me actually. Like there right away there's a tie of intimacy also, like a personal connection in that sense. A trust.
it's a really strong, intimate moment, yeah, and that's why it is first of all very unusual, can be very discomforting at first,
Hmm.
but when we learn to trust each other, because there is an agreement between witnesses and movers, there is agreement that the witness is learning how to see without any judgment.
Yes.
The witness is learning how to be a support, how to be a basically admirer, fan of this mover. The witness sees the mover as if it's their master, or
Yes.
if it is as if it would be a beloved baby.
Yes.
Yes. Uh, so so the witness has a very important role, and and it doesn't mean that the mover and witness have to know each other or like work with each other for a long time. Maybe at the beginning people like that or require that because the beginners need some time or sometimes years to actually learn to trust that the witness is going to reveal something I never knew before, and that the witness is a big gift. The witness is um, something I cannot experience or in a normal life in this way, in this context or in this format or in this framework. So yes, there is a huge intimacy between mover and witness, because yeah, I want to learn how to show myself fully to the witness. There is, if there is a pretense or fake or cheating, it's immediately visible. Basically,
Hmm.
it um, it it takes time. But in authentic movement, the movement is kind of inevitable. You almost can predict what happens next because the movement is necessary. It's not made up. The mover learns how to not create any movements. So if the movement is created by the ego, by by my will, let's say, then it's different. And we see that. But if the movement is really authentic, that means that in the present moment appears and develops and is developing, then the mover and the witness, they both know this is it. That's the moment of the truth.
Yes, that's very powerful. Rena, I want to highlight this again because maybe some listeners immediately had this question like, what does the word authentic mean in authentic movement? So maybe we can repeat this also. Like you already said that authentic means it comes, it's truthful, it comes at this particular moment. I let you define authentic again.
Yeah,
You can say
in
again what
this,
you just said.
yeah, I know. I've encountered many discussions about what is authentic, and people have very different ideas what is authentic. And I'm not going to now, um, you know, um,
Your idea.
yeah, my idea is not even my idea, but in this discipline,
Yeah.
it is exactly the movement which comes, which is not created, which is inevitable to do, and you are basically surprising yourself with it.
Yes.
It's something which your unconscious process is speaking through you or surfacing through the movement. You have no idea why you're doing this or that. And only after the practice, in a verbal phase, when you talk about it, then we can maybe tap on the unconscious process of what, how it was, not what it was and why, because that would be kind of fabulating a story and finding a reason. No, here we are not even search for any reasons. We are searching for mystical moments where you're closer and closer to the direct experience. So it's something you cannot rationalize, you cannot analyze, but you're learning how to name it, because that means that you're then bringing your unconscious processes into consciousness, and that's a hugely evolving your psyche.
Mm.
um, yeah,
Rena, as I was listening to you, it occurred to me that from the field of writing, let's say, a similar kind of practice would be automatic writing. Is there something, is authentic movement like automatic writing? In other words, I start to write and I just see what comes.
I would say it has very similar features, yes.
Mm.
Except in writing, you're using your brain
Right, right, right.
and words and so on, and um, it's very mental process.
Uh,
Where this authentic movement, I would say, it's such a for me, it is like a really a realm of altered consciousness. It's a state of being, state of not thinking at all. You're entering emptiness. You have no idea what's going to happen there, what's going to surface, how, what will move you. And so for me, this is a very different than mental process.
mhm. As I was listening to you also, and maybe this is again something I would like to highlight to the listeners, is that all of the elements of the practice, I feel like it takes time to learn. For example, it takes time for some people, I'm imagining, to learn how to sense, recognize this impulse to move. It takes time to learn how to be a witness. It takes time to learn to access these deeper elements of the psyche. It takes time to learn how to give verbal feedback also, although I'm imagining that in authentic movement, there's also, in a way, like a process or a code as to how you do it. So that it's not like criticizing or this is what you did that I
Absolutely,
like.
absolutely.
And there's a particular way. So for people who haven't
Yes.
maybe experienced the authentic movement, it's hard for them to imagine even like the verbal part. The
Oh,
movement
yeah.
part starts to feel it's very interesting, but the verbal part is also something that like if you go to a session, you will be instructed also as to how to do it.
Oh, absolutely. It's the hardest part. And the teacher is always teaching you bit by bit how to talk, how to express it verbally, how to share. But yes, it is a developmental process. It's a huge. It's really it develops. For me, it's for many lifetimes. I'm not really sure that I will achieve mastery in this life.
Yes.
Um, because one thing is to develop a consciousness of the mover first, because you're meeting your inner voice all the time, your inner critic, or your inner witness, who
Yes.
has always opinions and tells you what. So that's a first task, and it's not at all easy. Yes, it's good when you're curious and when you already know your body somewhat, or you can feel yourself. You can feel sense your body. You have some other practices before,
Mm-hmm.
any kind of physical practices where you're invited to sense and feel yourself. So that definitely helps, because this discipline is inviting you really to be in a silence with yourself and with the witness. So it is a very intimate, unusual situation. And the practice, is usually 10-15 minutes, but sometimes we move for 30-40 minutes in the silence with the witness. So yes, it's a journey.
Yes.
So that's that. And then the talking, speaking, witnessing, that's really another phase.
Mm-hmm.
And we're we are learning the language of the felt sensing, non-judgment,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's kind of a bodily language or embodied language, because we don't want to describe what happened. We want to again be able to come into that moment of the bodily sensing and try to name it. And the teacher, of course, is helping. And there is a very specific way. And yeah, it's so gorgeous when the teacher really knows how to talk. There is not very many trained people, I would say, from this. There is an authentic movement, and there is the discipline of authentic movement, which is very different. That's the Janet Adler approach.
Mm-hmm.
And the faculty of teachers is not very big, and the training is very rigorous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then it's really, for me, extraordinary experience and
Yes.
practice. And so for me, it became a necessity. It's, something like, yeah,
Yes.
order.
Yes. The what we talked about just a few minutes ago, the journey, the developmental journey, I think it's important to highlight that also because sometimes in somatic movement practices, it's a little harder for people to understand what progress is or what we're actually doing and how we're deepening with the practice. I have some interviews with people on this notion of progress on this YouTube channel also, if you want to check this out. Even for Rena, tell us about the role of the witness also, because uh, from my mm, from my experience with authentic movement, because sometimes elements of authentic movement, the witnessing practices are also incorporated into other movement practices, because sometimes the teachers of these other movement or the creators of these other movement practices have studied authentic movement, and so they borrow certain elements also. And I know that, for example, the role of the witness is also immensely challenging because it's hard for people to stay present and to
Oh,
hold the space
it
that
is exactly. It is immensely challenging. And there is really all kinds of witnessing. In authentic movement, you can have different kind of witnessing. Um, for example, what we did within the dance movement therapy with Joan Chodorov, um, because she comes from the Jungian approach, the witness is empathizing, but is also invited for active imagination,
Mhm.
and the witness then is invited to share their active imagination. What I see when you move,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mm.
But then that means that the mover is having their own story, images, movement, and so, and the witness completely different. And then they share. So it's about the mover, but also about the witness.
Yes.
And sometimes the mover can be very sensitive, and what he would hear from the witness could hurt him, or not help him, or whatever.
Yes.
Other times it can be very enriching and very interesting. People are usually very curious. Oh, what did you see? What did you experience? Let's say, I want to know. And yes, it is also a great practice. Sometimes I do it with my group. Um, in the discipline, when I go to my teacher, it's very different. The witness never tells um, their own story. The witness is there to support 100% the mover. And so, so the witness is very carefully listening what the mover says first. And then the witness is enriching it with his or her own felt sense experience, because yes, the witness is 100% present with the mover, but is not invited to imagine, to try to read the movement, to
Yes.
presume that something like that is happening. Just pure presence with the mover.
Yes.
And then, based on what the mover says, the witness can speak. And it takes long time, because for some time the witness should be silent, and only the experienced teacher can share.
Yes. I have a question about that also, but just before I go there, I wanted to tell to the listeners also that just imagine how precious this kind of an experience is, because these days we have such a hard time to be present. Yes, we're constantly like we need to look at things and what's going on, da, 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 da. And so even without our devices in the room, mentally, it takes discipline to stay focused, also absorbed in the moment with another person, really. But Rena, I have a question because in my imagination, I thought authentic movement is I imagined it like this. We come to the class, and then there's one witness who's you. And so it's the experienced person who witnessed the entire group moving. But from you, I hear that's not necessarily the case, that you do a lot of,
Duets or
yes,
triads.
duets,
Yeah,
or like, so
mhm.
everybody can be in the role of a witness also. It doesn't have to be only the trained
Exactly.
facilitator. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
I do all kinds of configurations because sometimes people really feel much more open with one person witnessing
Mm-hmm.
than with I mean with if there is a duet, then they know they will switch roles and they kind of establish some kind of a relationship and their little space, and so they feel contained in it, to enter the big circle. As for some people is better, for some people much more courageous, to have the open space and
Mm-hmm.
only me as a witness.
Yes.
Then it's hard to share because then if there is many people, we cannot share so intimately.
Mm.
And if there is duets, then they have more time to share, and usually they love to talk, they love to share. They only uh, are learning really
Yes,
the way how to share. Yeah,
exactly. And just because I'm tracing the word intimacy, also let me point out that yes, the sharing is another form of intimacy in this practice. And as you mentioned earlier, I have a question about that too, or maybe you can share your reflections on this too. Sometimes I feel like when somebody witnesses how I move, well, I'm more self-conscious, so to speak, because somebody else is looking at me. But this witnessing presence also makes me feel more intimately connected to my body somehow. So the other person being there gives me more intimacy with myself also and my body. How do you feel about this response? Is that true also?
absolutely, absolutely. Basically, the witness is constituting me. Um, it's so strong to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's tricky because at the same time, I don't want to show off. I want to show myself, but I don't want to show off anything. I don't want to create any beautiful movements because I am seen.
Mm-hmm.
That happens, it can happen, of course, at the beginning, and always it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not at all the point.
Yes,
Yeah. So it takes time
exactly.
to really find the treasures of the witness, of
Yes.
the witnessing.
As I was listening to you, another thing that came to mind was this is me as a dance historian thinking a little bit. Uh, I remember reading the writings by Isadora Duncan, who I think is also one of the founding figures of this way of dancing. So Isadora Duncan at the beginning of the 20th century wouldn't call this like her movement method authentic, where she would use like natural and other kinds of words. But in her writing, she talks about this moment where she was alone in the studio and she said, I stood there and I was waiting for the impulse to move.
Mm-hmm.
And I waited and I waited and I waited. And then I discovered that the impulse to move came for her, it was like from the solar plexus. But that's like
Mm-hmm.
one moment that I remember in dance writing earlier, talking about this dance impulse. And then I
Mm-hmm.
myself, I wrote an article about an even earlier dance educator who also talked about dance impulses. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that layer also is very interesting for us to explore. And I really appreciated how you mentioned earlier that the point of entry can be different. The impulse can be, as you said, it can be an emotion, it can be a thought, it can be an image, it can be something in the space.
Oh yeah,
There is
yeah,
only
yeah,
one way to
yeah.
find that
And
impulse.
I think
Sensation.
this is how Mary Whitehouse also began. Just like Isadora, she wanted the dancers to find their own impulses and to dance naturally, to express naturally their emotions or their inner lives, let's say. So basically, but that's about improvisation, yes. So improvisation mm, based on some inner life and needs to expression. But you know, it's all about. It's still we're talking here about dance and as a performance. Of Isadora or any other performer who is doing improvised dance. Whether this, the role of the witness, it changes the whole context so dramatically,
Right.
because there is not only you and the witness, but there is this third entity between you. So there is this me, you, and in between us is, yeah, it's doing something, it's creating something with both the mover and witness. So there is the field, energetic phenomena happening. So yeah, that's the difference from the performative
Yes.
practice and dance as,
Mm.
improvisation from the heart.
Right. Reina, tell us about mystical experiences. Do you have a story? You can like take your time to think about this. If you don't want to share, you also don't have to share, but I want to ask you this. Can you tell us about an example that you have had either as a witness or as a mover of a mystical experience in authentic movement?
Mm-hmm.
What is the mystical moment, the mystery in this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm. I used to have mystical experiences in dance. When I was young, I was dancing Persian dance, and Persian dance is based on mystical poetry, Sufi poetry. And for me to get into the Sufi poetry is also sort of a mystical thing to do, because it's kind of, it's a mind-blowing, you know but it's a poetry, and then to express it in dance, there is a sort of it's a sort of mysticism, because it's very ritualistic. Here in the authentic movement is very different. The moment comes when when I feel like I'm half conscious and half unconscious. Those are moments, and I remember a time with my teacher when I fell into a, state when I could not move. I didn't want to wake up. I didn't know whether I'm dying or I'm dead or still alive. And it was a sort of like near death experience. And my teacher tried to, of course, bring me back, and I really didn't want to. So I heard her, but it took some time, and then I took a walk in the garden, and all was fine. But um, I guess my nervous system completely like released, and I mean, it happens to me very often anyway, that when I get into the movement, my nervous system releases so much that I can hardly sometimes I my movements are really minimal. Yeah, so but then the mystical experience is when we are reflecting it, when we try to really name what was there, because she's leading me, and I come with words or sensations which I would never, I didn't know, I would not know, I would never be able to name it. And so when I named this with her help, then it's very shocking for me, and very uh, always new, unexpected, and it's like a big adventure.
Hmm.
Mm.
But what you just described feels like, how do I feel about this? Is it something that you look forward to also? Because for somebody who is not having the experience, it sounds a little scary also. I'm like,
Yes.
you had a
Yeah.
near-death experience. I don't know if I want to.
Yeah. No, uh, I'm not looking for that particular experience, but no, normally, because it only happened one time, normally it's such experience where you just um, don't know who you are, where you are. And yes, I'm really looking for these
That sounds scary
states.
too, Rena. Not knowing who you are and where you are. How this could
No,
be.
because you have the witness, and you know that you're in a safe space, that you're being seen.
Uh-huh.
And that's the thing, because I know that my witness is supporting me, and
Mhm.
I can totally release.
Okay, that
I
sounds
can
better.
I can release, and I can let anything to move me and explore. And maybe I'm curious about something, and I don't need to worry, I don't need to name it. My inner witness is already silent because I absorbed him. And I know that later on, with my witness and teacher, I will it will all surface, whatever happened there. So for me it's very juicy, wonderful, and adventurous uh, process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because even listeners, like imagine this. I'm sure many of you have had this experience also, but many of you also haven't. The experience of, I feel like something else is moving me. Like what you said earlier, like I'm not creating movement. Like that is very, that in itself, I think, is a mystical experience also, to feel carried and held and moved. There's a force that kind of moves through me as I move.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's sort of like you're in a kind of a womb, or in a other world. You can do whatever you want. and you're carried by the uh, by the field which is created between you and the witness,
Yeah.
and the support of the witness, so it's a sort of like a, yeah, baby in the womb.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good. Another element that sounds so good is this altered state, being in a safe container, uh, no drugs or anything like this, and you feel like you're in this kind of altered state of being through
Yes,
movement, and you feel,
exactly.
how do you feel afterwards? Do you feel like it refreshes your thinking also, or like it purifies something in you, it vitalizes you? How do you feel
Oh,
afterwards?
it's like, yeah, it's like a spa. It's like the best retreat, soul body retreat I I ever experienced. Yeah, because, yeah, I feel totally renewed, and mm, and like, I experience something which I would not for this situation, because in normal life, in mission, you cannot experience this. So this is extraordinary. Yeah, it is similar, like when one would take a trip of some psychedelics, or not even psychedelics, but let's say, mm, yeah, something like that, I would say. Similar.
Yes. So this is very powerful because being in these like altered states of mind in safe ways, I think is amazing. Now, Rena, what do you think about this? Now, I originally started to think about this topic because I was thinking about embodied intimacies and also like couples and romantic relationships. What do you think? Does if the two movers are also like in a love relationship, does the authentic movement practice also add something, or have you seen this happen, or how does it, how does this,
Yes.
does the practice have a potential to impact our relationships also? So, for example, if I feel
Oh,
like, okay, I want to
tremendously, tremendously.
do both.
I know only two couples from my circles, and one of the couple which I know, they do it separately with a teacher. So either one is doing it or the other one. Um, I don't know if they have done it together before, because now they have babies, so they do it separately. But mm, I know another couple, and they do it exclusively together, only the two of them and the teacher. Yeah, for many years. They do it once a year as a retreat, and they do it for many years. And I think it really, really is so powerful what I've heard from them, because they've been for many, many years together, and so it's incredible practice, yeah, for couples.
So, Rena, now I feel like we all want to do this and try this.
Oh, wonderful!
But still, but how does one how does one find a
Yeah,
place to do it, or like what are the
yeah,
practicalities also of this,
yeah,
or how do we talked about this earlier also because I was going to ask Rena a question and then she said, well, but I can't really answer this question very well because,
yeah.
and so the issue is, well,
Mm.
for this practice you need like a space, you need a witness, and so I feel like I want to do this, but what if I live in a place where there is no way to practice it, or uh,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
or I can't.
I would say this is the hard part, and I agree. And perhaps it's because it is really so intimate and so exclusive that the there is never a quantum of people who wanna do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very kind of niche market, I would say. So it is really not easy to find where to go. There are circles or groups of authentic movement all over the world. You just need to search for it. But yes, you can find groups of people who practice it, and they usually practice it in a light way, because if there is a group of 20 people, for example, or more, then it's kind of a nice, pleasant way, light way. But if you want to really go deep, go into as deep as you can, then you better find a very qualified teacher. And there is a website which is listing those teachers. It's called the Circle of Four. And then you connect with the teacher, you find out whether the teacher, what he or she is offering, if there are retreats. And usually, if somebody really wants to, you will find it.
Yes.
But
Now,
it's not so easy. And of course, authentic movement is done like nowadays in all the contact improv festivals, like as a, yeah, as a nice, easy kind of refreshment, let's say, something different. Yeah.
mm,
So the forms, how it is practiced, yeah, there is many layers, wider forms. So what is more available is, like, as I said, these big groups or different improvisation festivals.
mhm.
Um, but but the really deep stuff is not so easy.
But Rena, eh, what do you recommend? Like, is it enough? How often should I do the practice to really benefit from this? What should I aim for? Should I do it every week? A few times a month? Like, obviously, I will try to do it as often as I can, but what would you recommend? What's a good amount?
Uh-huh. Well,
Progress to go deep.
yeah, yeah. I would say really it is so individual, and there is no prescription how often. Um, for me, I would love to do it every week as a practice. So I do it every week as a witness, and I need it. For me, also, the witnessing is just as rich as being a mover. And as a mover, I can only do it twice a year with my teachers, because it's, yeah, they're far away. I have to travel. I have to spend some days there. So, yeah. And I would love to do it much more if I could. Yeah. So, for my students, once a week or twice a week, it's very nice practice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can I do it online also?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
it
you
works
can do it
online.
online. And there are teachers, which I can recommend. They provide sessions online, and it's very powerful. It's
It
very
works also
nice.
online.
It
It works.
works. Yes, it works. Yeah. The witnessing, as long as you have good internet and space, and yeah, it works. It is different, of course. Live session is, the presence, the physical presence for me is very different. So I actually still refuse to do it online, and I prefer to travel across, far away, to visit my teachers, to be with them in a physical presence. But they all teach online as well, because sometimes it's not possible to travel. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rena, for all of these insights. I have two last questions. The first last question is, do you feel like this practice of authentic movement has changed how you live outside of the practice also? Has it been transformative?
Oh, totally. I don't know any other practice which would transform me more than this. Yeah, I mean, I've tried many things, and as I said, I love continuum movement. I love skin release technique presently, and it's all wonderful, beautiful practices. But to go so deep into the core of your cells is nothing comparable. So yes.
But do you feel like you are also a more authentic person in the world because of this practice? And do you feel like your relationships are different also because of this practice? Because you regularly practice holding space and being there with the person. So for example, if I come to you, I would tell you, well, there's something very different about you. Like when I'm with you, I feel like you're really present. You really see me. Do people give you this kind of feedback, for example?
Yes, because my job is to be first of all teacher and then therapist. And as a teacher, I hold a group, and I do want to give my presence to to each of the persons. So it can be really demanding. With client, of course, that's like expected, or maybe not even expected, but that's what I would like to experience when I go for therapy. I want my therapist to be 100% with me. Otherwise, it's not very much something what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this particularly. I really love people's presence, and I love to talk with someone who is present, who really that we share everything. Yeah, how would I say? Yeah. So I'm still learning. I'm learning. I will learn forever from this. How to be authentic, how to be present, how to be non-judgmental. So it's a lifetime learning. Yeah.
Beautiful. Reina, do you have anything that you want to say that I didn't ask you?
um,
What's the impulse? Is there an impulse to say something?
no, just the impulse that yes, that I would wish. I really would wish that more and more people would experience it and would want to experience it, would want to explore it, would want to practice it.
Yes.
So exactly for that reason, that their distraction and attention would cultivate, or that there would not be so much distraction in um, their life,
Yes.
and really the gift to be present to for one another. I think it's such a gift. It's like it's about humanness, to be there for each other with this
And I feel like it's one of the,
incredible presence. So it's a big gift, I think, to humanity. Once I asked my teacher, okay, we are here, only me and you, for 4 days, for 5 hours a day or something, and like I'm here, like relieving my inner, my unconscious processes and so, and like, what is it good for? And she said, very seriously, she said, I believe we are healing the world through this. It's not only about me, my unconscious experience. She sees it as a really large field. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to describe it so
Yeah.
simply, and but and I'm after many many years, I'm beginning to understand what she meant. That it's really healing the world.
Yes. Also, because in the presence of people who are able to hold a space and who bring these gifts of I'm here with you right now, and uh, it grounds other people also. I mean, they might not necessarily come and give us the feedback that, wow, this is different, but they feel this also. There's a power that power is maybe not the right word, but there's something very strong that comes with this kind of stance in the world also that impacts other people. Like if I'm present with other people will notice this also.
Oh,
And it
absolutely.
has it has an impact on them. It kind of
Absolutely.
calls them, there's a call to like respond with the same.
Oh, yes. I mean, really, it's so necessary. It's so healing, because if you really don't feel well, you don't even know about it. What do you need? You need somebody's love, presence, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, authentic movement is all about love. It's really about love, because you learn how to love that uh, whoever you see,
Mhm.
mover, and
Yes. And it's also about like looking at the other person's experience with loving eyes also, I feel like I hold you in my loving gaze, meaning
oh
I just
yeah,
hold you, I behold you.
totally.
I don't judge you. I see who you, how you move and who you are. I do my.
Yes, yes, exactly.
This is a very powerful way to end this conversation. Also, that authentic movement is ultimately about
Love.
love. That's, and we were talking about embodied intimacy here, so it all came together. I wanted to ask you this final question also. I feel like, or I wanted to just make this clear for the viewers who might have the same kind of stereotype a little bit. I feel like because maybe historically also because the practice was like um grew up or was used in dance therapy circles. Am I correct? Like it has this kind of, and so I think one of the stereotypical views that people have about dance therapy is I must have a problem to go to dance therapy. Like there must be something that I need to heal in myself in order to do the session. I feel like I might be totally
Yeah,
wrong about this, but I feel like authentic movement has a little bit of that also. So maybe that's one reason people are not discovering the practice is they feel like, well, but I don't want to, like, I don't want to do like a psychological work in this. So would you recommend us to like seek out this practice? Like, don't think that you must have some kind of a traumatic experience. Oh, you might also, that's fine too, but it's not about that. It's not like here we are dealing
exactly.
with your therapy. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly the problematic sometimes word therapy. Yeah, because if I go to therapy, then I must have some problem.
Mhm.
And that's why authentic movement is really kind of restraining from even say they teachers never say it's a therapy
Mhm.
practice really. My
Mhm.
teacher says it's a movement practice, so humble.
Yeah.
And uh, but it's such a specific practice about really self-knowledge and coming closer to the truth, and all these aspects are ultimately therapeutic, you know
Yes, they have that effect.
so for me for me um, it is a very powerful therapy, but it's really not a it's very much differs from a therapeutic session,
Yeah.
it's very, very different frame.
Yes.
So
So we encourage people to try this out. And also, by the way, if you like to read interesting writing also, just because I happen to have this book, I'm just gonna like show this to the viewers also. So the book is called Intimacy in Emptiness, An
yes,
Evolution of Embodied Consciousness. It's collected writings of Janet Adler. And the writings here also have a very particular feel, and there's something very mystical about the writings also, so I recommend. And I also must say that I found this book um, a year ago in Estonia in a bookstore that is not at all specialized in movement or dance or whatever. So it, in a way, has a mystical background also, this book. Like, why was this book in this bookstore? And there was only one of them. I was completely blown away that um, this kind of book was in that bookstore. And
I
so
am
I
blown away in
wanted.
Estonia too, because you would never find this book in Prague in any bookstore, for example.
And there was no, and you know, somatic movement practices are also not so widely known in Estonia, for example. And so to have this kind of a very specific, so that's why a very specific book at that bookstore, which was about like scientific, mostly about scientific and then literary writings. So I just felt like, well, this was a little sign also that I have to tell people about this, that it was there for me to buy, and then also for me to tell
Wonderful,
you guys about it.
wonderful, wonderful. That's absolutely for me. It's like the best. And Janet writes so beautifully. She has another book, Offerings from the Conscious Body,
Mhm.
and that's it's incredible. It's like really describing the process of authentic movement. And then there is also this wonderful, wonderful uh,
Yes.
book, which has two parts. There is another part. This is the essays, and here it's wonderful because it's essays by Mary Starks Whitehouse, Janet Adler, and John Chodorov. So by all the three women, and you can really read how they are thinking, what they're offering, what they, how they write about it, and each woman is quite different, and each of them writes so beautifully. It's very academic. It's not easy read, yeah,
Mhm.
but it's really rich, beautiful writing.
Rena, do you want people to find you also? Do you have classes that you want people to?
Yes,
I will put
yes.
your website into I will put your website into the description, but do you want to tell us what you offer also or how people can
Oh
come to
yeah.
you?
I am offering groups of authentic movement, but yeah, it's the light version of authentic movement. There is usually 8 of us, and it's every Thursday in my studio. And um, so we practice. We sometimes we make drawings. And sometimes we work in duet. Sometimes I'm the only witness, and yeah, it is still very intimate, very contemplative, and uh, yeah, meditative experience. So that's that. And other than that, I teach somatic movement, creative movement, and uh, yeah, all kind of.
Beautiful, Rena. Thank you so much for this very illuminating interview, for your time, for your passion, for the wisdom of your experience.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
We want to invite you back also. I want to invite you back. I also have another idea. So let us know in the comments also what you thought of the interview and whether you have had soul expanding and mystical experiences with movement also, and whether you practice witnessing in your life in any way. And we will see you in another episode. Thank you again, Rena. Bravo.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.